Welcome back to BunkaiGaming, this is Matt. So today I want to talk about something that recently happened to me. While playing the PvP side of Destiny, well, aka the Crucible, after the match that you're seeing playing on the screen at the moment, I was actually accused of cheating during the game. So after the game finished, quite a few messages went backwards and forwards via PSN, talking about, what he was seeing on the screen wasn't actually reflected to what I was seeing. But he was still quite adamant that I was cheating somehow by lag switching and giving myself an advantage that I really wasn't giving him. So as a way to say to him, look, I'm not cheating, I will show you my perspective. Because I've made a habit of now recording all the games that I play, at least the PvP side of things in Destiny, to show people that, this is what you're encountering and this is what I'm actually seeing on my screen. But it did get me thinking. Considering that I come from the PC world and play a lot of PC multiplayer games, cheaters are something you see on a semi-regular basis, but you're going to run across somebody that's using some kind of cheat or hack or modification to allow them to get ahead. And a lot of the times people are wondering why they use these systems or technologies to do this, and it's because I think it just comes down to the downright lazy, or they just don't really care, so they don't want to take the time to actually learn the game or learn the mechanics or learn to become better at the game itself. It's easier just for them to go straight in, cheat, and feel like they're actually achieving something when they know that they can't do that normally. But what happens to players in, say, aka Destiny, when they're getting reported for cheating, when it's not actually them cheating, it's the game itself that is, in a way, broken and causing the issue. And it got me thinking too, how many people could potentially be banned because of the actual game mechanics themselves, comparatively to players that may be just much better, more careful about how they position themselves and give themselves an advantage over other players. And this is something I've always tried to be conscious of, especially in multiplayer games, is trying to learn positioning, knowing the map, knowing where I can move around and potentially put myself in a much better position to be able to win firefights. It doesn't always work to my advantage, but those times when it does work, I'm able to really take advantage of it and be able to really do some work and be able to be really effective for my team. But from the perspective of a casual player, they look at somebody like me and think to themselves, how is he able to do this without cheating? So he must be using some kind of mechanism to be able to give himself an advantage. And this leaves me open to a lot of accusations about me using systems or ways to be able to give myself that advantage, when it's far from the truth that I'm actually utilizing any of those systems. But this becomes a huge issue for a game like Destiny. With the PvP side, with the Crucible, Iron Banner, Trials of Osiris, being reliant on a very old technology of peer-to-peer over a dedicated service, which the majority of multiplayer games rely on these days, has no end of problems with it. With people being able to manipulate their connections to be able to, what they call, red bar themselves, then the game will try to compensate for that, considering that one person is red barring. This is made worse by the fact that also the design of Destiny and the PvP requires at least a minimum of 1 meg upload, which is very, very difficult for a lot of countries. Especially here in Australia, a lot of people are lucky if they have a meg upload at this point in time. I mean, my connection, I'll give you a speed test here to show you what my connection is at current. It will be improving in the future, but at present, I'm not even meeting the minimum requirements for what Destiny's required. Now, this may be just the fact of the way it's coded, and it may change in the future, but it can be very frustrating from a player's perspective to know that entire lobbies at times can be red barring, and you can see people basically teleporting around, or you can see the stretching on characters as somebody is lagging. Then the problems are compounded with the fact that the matchmaking with Destiny that Bungie has created is always trying to constantly match you up with people of similar skill levels. But as the player base declines, that radius of where it selects people from has to progressively go further and further and further afield. And then what ends up happening is basically it pulls people in from so far away that of course they're going to have connection issues, or they're going to be red barring as such, because the game has no choice, because it has to pull from so far away to be able to match people up with similar skill levels. So a lot of people are probably saying the easy option then would be just to remove matchmaking. But it's not a solution in itself, because what you'll find occurs is a lot of players who are of lower levels will then suddenly get matched up with players of a much higher skill bracket. And this will cause issues because they'll just basically beat up on the less experienced players. And then that will frustrate them, and then they'll be less likely to come back and play the games themselves. So there has to be this happy medium. Where that happy medium is, I don't think Bungie has been able to find it at this point in time. And I don't think they'll ever be able to achieve it with this current generation of Destiny. I think as we progress into the next version of Destiny, hopefully they'll look at implementing dedicated servers, and then a lot of these problems will potentially go away. While people can still manipulate their actual connections, they're all more going to be affecting themselves than they're going to be affecting an entire lobby of people. And this is something that Bungie needs to really start to focus on and be conscious of. Because there's a lot of frustration within the community of the fact that a lot of games aren't based around the skill of a person, and it's the connections that determine whether you win or lose a gunfight. I know that a lot of the times when I've lost gunfights in a situation where I think I have the advantage, it's not due to the fact that I've been outplayed a lot of the time. It's the fact that the person is lagging in some sort of way, and that has allowed them to take advantage of that and win that gunfight. But it'll probably also gives people this false sense of security in the fact that they're thinking they're winning gunfights because of their skill, when that's far from the truth itself. And a lot of the times this is reflected in games with the fact that you'll see these situations where you'll be shooting a person for an entire mag or two, and they'll basically stand toe-to-toe with you and kill you at that point in time, or they will flop over dead after a few seconds. Then you have this other situation where you'll be wandering along, nobody in any of the sight lines, you're in this completely closed off area where nobody could potentially be shooting you, and suddenly you'll take damage for no apparent reason. Somehow you've come in the sight line and the damage has taken that long to register. This is also frustrating when somebody kills you from across the map. Well, that's what the kill cam is at least showing you, from across the map that person has killed you. That's happened to me many times, where the person could potentially on the screen be right next to you, but you do not see that reflected actually in game. And unfortunately, the only mechanism that we have to be able to tell whether a person has a good or bad connection, on the console side at least, is very antiquated. And being so ambiguous, it is very hard to make a determination whether something is good or bad. Unfortunately, a lot of the times, a green bar connection could be anywhere from 10 milliseconds up to, say, 400 milliseconds. A yellow could be 400 to 1200. And then 1200 plus could be classified as a red bar. It is very difficult to be able to tell whether somebody has an actual good connection or not. A lot of the times in games, sometimes it can show you a green bar, and you can tell that this is not a green bar connection. And this is something that I'd like to see changed in the console world, is the ability to be able to see a physical number, a physical ping number, similar to like we see in the PC. But I don't think the developers are going to go down that track, because this will cause issues within itself. And I understand why they take this approach. It's less confusing from a casual player perspective, or a player that doesn't know what's going on, than seeing a number and trying to understand what the number reflects. But I think there's a hidden agenda behind it too. I think if the player base knew potentially how high the pings of some of these players are, they would be very upset and probably be going back to Bungie and saying, why are we getting people connecting with such high pings to these lobbies? But overall, I think they need to really look at some suggestions that people have had, where they talk about having a competitive playlist, which is not connection based, it's basically skill based, and then having a more connection based player base that looks at people in your local area and tries to bring those people together. I think it would solve a lot of these problems, but I think there's still some tweaking that needs to be done. I think really Bungie should start to be focusing on this as they progress into the next version of Destiny. But I think the gaming developers need to be more transparent about the technologies that they're utilising. I think as gamers now, we're becoming more and more informed and know what's going on within the networking world and in the internet itself. So the more transparency that they give us, the more ability it gives us to be able to make judgments and be able to determine whether something is good or bad. So please let me know in the comments below if you've ever been accused of hacking or cheating in any sort of way, form, and what game it was in. So please leave your comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Thank you, bye.
Finish them. Ha ha! More efforts like that and we might just win this.